It's 10:20. Means it's 4:20 somewhere. If you got one, spark up. All right. Been a while since I did the George Carlin audiobook. So we got part 21. Got about hour and 18 minutes left. So let's get to it.
Does anybody really listen to that shitty music they play on the radio? FM radio music? What's it called? Adult contemporary? Classic rock? Urban rhythm and blues? You know what the official business name for that shit is? Corporate standardized programming. Just what an art form needs. Corporate standardized programming. Derived from scientific surveys conducted by soulless businessmen. Here's how bad it is. One nationwide chain that owns over 1,000 radio stations conducts weekly telephone polls asking listeners their opinions on 25 to 30 song hooks they play over the phone. Hooks that the radio people have already selected. Hooks are the short, repeated parts of pop songs that people remember easily. Depending on these polls, the radio chain decides which songs to place on their station's playlists. Weeks later, they record the hooks of all the songs they're currently playing on their stations across the country, label them by title and artist, and sell that information to record companies to help create more of the same bad music. They also sell the information to competing radio stations that want to play what the big chain is playing. All of this is done to prevent the possibility of original thinking somehow creeping into the system. Let me tell you something. In the first place, listening to music someone else has picked out is not my idea of a good time. Second, and more important, the fact that a lot of people in America actually like the music automatically means it sucks, especially since the people who like it have been told in advance by businessmen what it is they're supposed to like. Please save me from people who've been told what to like and then like it. In my opinion, if you're over 6 years of age and you're still getting your music from the radio, something is desperately wrong with you. I can only hope that somehow MP3 players and file sharing will destroy FM radio the way they're destroying record companies. Then, even though the air will probably never be safe to breathe again, maybe it will be safer to listen to.
It's funny because I've never been a fan of the radio. One, because in the rare instance they play a song I like, I gotta fill in the blanks. What fun is that? Right now I use Spotify. They all the other music apps where you can download whatever you want. I don't know, they always end up slowing my phone down a lot, and I start running into issues and phones die much faster, so had to get away from that.
What is the purpose of having a person sign the Star-Spangled Banner? Don't deaf people know the words by now? Besides, signing can't possibly convey the exact personalized musical rendition the singer may be offering. How could a signer ever convey to a deaf person the elaborate note-bending vocal gymnastics that black female singers put the anthem through, especially those last few lines, "O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave," which sometimes can take more than 6 or 7 minutes to complete? Why, I should think a signer would break an arm trying to get that stuff across. Besides, what does the national anthem have to do with sports in the first place? I never understood that. Play ball.
So, when it comes to football, I forgot how long ago it was, but it wasn't long ago that players weren't on the field for the national anthem. They were usually in the locker room. Then our tax dollars were given to the NFL and the NFL teams by the DOD in order to boost up patriotism so that they could boost up recruitment to send your children, brothers, sisters, whoever, off to die in a war for someone else's resources. Not our freedoms, but control of resources that will largely only profit a few companies. So, yeah.
During the Middle Ages, it seems as though every castle had a group of trumpet players who stood in a line and played loud, intricate fanfares whenever something important happened. And it occurred to me that occasionally those guys must have needed to practice. You know, fanfare practice, 3 o'clock near the moat. It could be any number of reasons. New guys in the group, new fanfares, the brand new trumpets came in. So I'm wondering, when these guys did hold practice, and they kept playing the fanfares over and over, were the people working around the castle required to constantly keep snapping to attention? Did maybe some of them do it anyway, out of force of habit? Or did everyone pretty much ignore the fanfare since they knew it was really only practice? And if so, at a time like that, when everyone had been lulled into a false sense of security, what if the king decided to walk across the yard?
That makes me think of that episode of The Office where Jim was training Dwight. I can't remember exactly what he was doing. Some noise or click or something would happen, and then Jim would reach over and give Dwight like a candy or a Tic Tac or some shit. And then he did it so many times that it got to the point where he would hit, the noise would go off, and then Dwight's hand would just instantly shoot up. It was but it does though. Like we are creatures of habit. If we habitually do something enough times, it can get to the point where you can sleepwalk through it. Just because it's by that point it's a muscle memory. But all right, let's keep going.
To visit his sister in the dungeon, and they blew a fanfare for him. Half the people would probably just keep on working. Would that piss him off, or would he understand? And what about coming to attention practice? Seems like fanfare practice would be a perfect time to hold it. Kill 2 birds. Fuck it. These are the sort of thoughts that hold me back in life. Here's why I'm opposed to singing. Singing strikes me as an indicator of limited language skills. My feeling is that if someone has a valid thought, deserving of expression, but somehow that thought can't be communicated without the assistance of a banjo or a tambourine, then maybe it's a thought the rest of us don't need to hear. People will argue singing has more to do with expressing emotion than it does with expressing thought. Well, fine. But from my point of view, when it comes to expressing emotion, singing is not nearly as effective a tool as screaming. Let's face it, if you want to express emotion, screaming is where it's at. And to be fair, the more I think about it, the more I realize that singing itself is nothing more than a modified form of screaming. It's actually just carefully organized, socially acceptable screaming. And folks, I think we have enough screaming in the world as it is. Now, dancing, on the other hand, I can understand. Dancing is a highly developed form of jumping around. And there's certainly nothing wrong with jumping around. Jumping around is fine in my book. In fact, I feel it's essential. So please, feel free to jump around all you want. But if you fall and break a leg, don't come screaming to me. Write a song. Have you noticed that whenever someone at a large gathering tries to get the attention of the crowd on a public address system, they always yell into the microphone, "Attention! Attention, please! Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please!" Don't these people understand that the whole purpose of a voice amplifying system is to amplify the voice? I think the idea is that when you speak into it, it makes your voice sound louder. Maybe I'm way off on this, but it seems to me that if there's a device that makes your voice sound louder, there's probably no reason to yell into it. I don't know, maybe I'm just wrong on this. I'm willing to listen, but hold it down, will you? I'm tired of people using their cars as biographical information centers, informing the world of their sad sack lives and boring interests. Keep that shit to yourself. I don't want to know what college you went to, who you intend to vote for, or what your plan is for world peace. I don't care if you visited the Grand Canyon, Mount Rushmore, or the birthplace of Wink Martindale, and I'm not interested in what radio station you listen to or what bands you like. In fact, I'm not interested in you in any way except to see you in my rear view mirror. Furthermore, I can do without your profession of faith in God, Allah, Jehovah, Yahweh, Peter Cottontail, whoever the fuck it is you've turned your life over to. Please, keep your superstitions private. I can't tell you how happy it would make me to someday drive up to a flaming auto wreck and see smoke curling up around one of those little fish symbols with Jesus written inside it. And as far as I'm concerned, you can include the Darwin fish with feet evolution symbol, too. Far too cute for my taste. So keep the personal and autobiographical messages to yourself. Here's an idea. Maybe you could paste them up inside your car, where you can see them and I can't. Here's another segment of the bumper.
I've only ever had one bumper sticker in my life. It was when I was younger. It said, "Horn broken, watch for finger."
Sticker population that ought to be locked into portable toilets and set on fire. The ones who want us to know how well their kids are doing in school. Doing well, that is, according to today's lowered standards. We are the proud parents of an honors student at the Franklin School, or the Midvale Academy, or whatever other innocent-sounding name has been assigned to the indoctrination center where their child has been sent to be stripped of his individuality and turned into an obedient, soul-dead, conformist member of the American consumer culture. What kind of empty people need to validate themselves through the achievements of a child? How would you like to live with a couple of these blockheads?
I can imagine George being, I could definitely imagine him enjoying all this chaos among at school boards. You know, and it's school boards across the country. Each one for different reasons, depending on the location, and in some instances the state. But it's he'd certainly enjoy that, and homeschooling has gone way up. But
Say, Justin, how's that science project coming along? Fuck you, Dad, you simple-minded prick. Mind your own business and pass the Fruit Loops. Fucking cunt dork. Here are a few parental bumper stickers I'd like to see. We are the proud parents of a child whose self-esteem is sufficient that he doesn't need us promoting his minor scholastic achievements on the back of our car. That would be refreshing. We are the proud parents of a child who has resisted his teacher's attempts to break his spirit and bend him to the will of his corporate masters. A little Marxist, but what the fuck? Here's something realistic. We have a daughter in public school who hasn't been knocked up yet. And for the boy, we have a son in public school who hasn't shot any of his classmates yet. But he does sell drugs to your honors student. Plus, he knocked up your daughter. And what about those parents who aren't too proud of their children? We are the embarrassed parents of a cross-eyed, drooling little nitwit who, at the age of 10, not only continues to wet the bed, but also shits on the school bus. Something like that on the back of the car might give the child a little more incentive. Get him to try a little harder next semester.
This one's from one of his bits. I can't remember which one it is.
Here's another item you can't see while it's still on your body. A scab on the top of your head. Did you ever have that? Sure you have. A little scab on the top of your head. Not a big, red, juicy blood scab like you get when someone at work hits you in the head with a Stilson wrench. Just a little scaly, scabby, dry spot. You find it one day by accident when you're scratching your head. You come across it as if by good luck. Whoa, what's this? A scab. Hot shit. A scab. I love fucking scabs. This is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to pick off my scab and look at it. Oh boy. I can't wait to pick off my scab and place it down on a contrasting material such as a black velvet tablecloth in order to see it in greater relief. Oh boy. I can't wait to pick off my scab. This is going to be a lot of fun. Wait just a minute. It's not ready to come off yet. It's immature. It's still not ripe. It's not ready for plucking. I'll save this for Thursday. Thursday will be a good day. I have only half a day of work on Thursday. I'll come home early, masturbate in the kitchen, wash the floor, and then I'll watch the Montel Williams show. And while I do, I'll pick off my scab. Oh boy. I can't wait to pick off my scab. This is going to be a lot of fun. So you wait, and you wait. And you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you try not to knock it off by accident with the little plastic comb you bought in the vending machine at the Easy Living Motel when you hooked up with the two skanky-looking chicks who gave you the clap that night. And now, finally, Thursday arrives. It's harvest time on the top of your head. So you come home early, and you masturbate, but you do it in your sister's bedroom just to give it a little extra thrill, know what I mean? Then you shampoo the rug, and you watch the Montel Williams show. Pretty interesting topic. Women who take it up the ass for 50 cents. Not the best show he's ever done, but you know something? Not bad either. And now it's time to go get this little scab. But you want to proceed carefully. You want to pry this thing off slowly and evenly around the perimeter of the scab so that it lifts off all in one piece. You don't want it to break into pieces. Who needs a fragmented scab? Not me. I don't need parts that badly. I'm not that disturbed. What you really want, what you really need, what you really must have is a complete whole scab you can set down, study, make notes on, and perhaps write a series of penetrating articles for Scab Aficionado magazine. Who knows? You might rise to the top of the scab world in a big hurry. It's a small community, and they need people at the top. And so you proceed. With a single fingernail extended, always choosing your best peeling and scraping nail, you find your way through the thicket of hair and locate the target. You make a careful initial probe, and surprisingly, the prey yields easily, coming off all in one piece. And you lift it off carefully, through the hair, and position it on the tip of your picking finger. And you look at the little thing. So pathetic there on your finger, isolated, alone, out of its environment. And your heart begins to melt. So you take your new friend carefully between thumb and forefinger and gently place it back on your head, setting it loose in the wild. And you feel the better man. You're in harmony with your body. Think of it as catch and release.
That was an interesting one.
While we Americans have been busy creating politically correct euphemisms for old people, thereby making their lives infinitely easier, we've also been working on our poor people language problem. And we now have language that takes all the pain out of being poor. Having no money these days is easier than ever. I can remember when I was young that poor people lived in slums. Not anymore. These days, the economically disadvantaged occupy substandard housing in the inner cities. It's so much nicer for them. And yet they're still considered socially marginal. But as it turns out, many of these socially marginal people receive public assistance, once known as welfare. Before that, it was called being on relief or being on the dole. And at that time, being on the dole was the worst thing you could say about a family. They're on the dole. People were ashamed. It was tough to get a date if you were on the dole. But public assistance, that sounds good. Who of us hasn't benefited from some form of public assistance? Even huge businesses and agricultural interests receive public assistance. Ditto all the wealthiest taxpayers. So apparently, there's no shame attached to being on the dole after all. In this country, about the only thing worse...
It's funny, because a lot of these big tech companies, they only exist because of our tax dollars. The contracts, all that stuff. Yeah.
Having no money is having no place to live. And over the years, those with no place to live have had many different names. Vagrants, tramps, hobos, drifters, and transients come to mind. Which name applied to a person sometimes depended on his, God, this is difficult to say, lifestyle. There, it's out. But can having no place to live actually be a lifestyle? Well, it seems to me that if you're going to use a questionable word like lifestyle at all, you should be forced to use it across the board. After all, if there's a gay lifestyle, which I doubt, and a suburban lifestyle, which seems more arguable, it stands to reason there must be a homeless lifestyle. And even, one would assume, a prison lifestyle. Indeed, is it possible that those doomed souls in places like Buchenwald were actually enjoying a concentration camp lifestyle? If they were, don't tell their families. You'll be misunderstood. And taking this unfortunate word to its ultimate logical extreme, I will not be surprised to someday see one of those spiritual mediums doing a TV show called Lifestyles of the Dead. Incidentally, shouldn't a group of mediums be called media? Just asking. Back to the subject. Vagrants, tramps, hobos, drifters, and transients. Without using a dictionary, which in many cases is no help at all, here are the distinctions I picked up in years past by listening to how people used these words. The sense I got was, vagrants simply had no money. Tramps and hobos had no money, but they moved around. Drifters moved around, but occasionally worked for a while, and then drifted on, whereas tramps and hobos didn't work at all. We'll get to transients in a moment. There's one other distinction between tramps and hobos that I think is worth mentioning. The word tramp might also have been used to describe the young woman your son brought home. Rarely did anyone's son bring home a hobo, unless, of course, he was into the gay hobo lifestyle. Actually, there weren't too many gay hobos. That's because if a hobo didn't have a home, he certainly didn't have a closet either to be in or come out of. Sudden thought. Hobo rhymes with homo. Another way to categorize this class of people was to call them transients. Sometimes on Skid Row, where they had a lot of bums and winos, we'll get to them in a minute, you'd see a cheap hotel with a sign that said, "Transients Welcome." Transients were like drifters, except transients seemed to stay in cities, whereas drifters moved through small towns and rural areas. You had to move through those places because they weren't as tolerant as cities. They didn't have signs that said, "Drifters Welcome." It was usually just the opposite. Ask Clint Eastwood. By the way, isn't a hotel that says it welcomes transients a little like a restaurant that says it prefers people with stomachs? Just asking. First cousin to a transient hotel was a flop house, a magnificently descriptive piece of language that has all but disappeared. Just for the record, these days, transient hotels are called limited service lodgings. Several cuts above all these places were furnished rooms, these days known by the phrase SROs, short for single room occupancy. So, staying on track here, we began this section with people who have no place to live, which brings us to today's hot designation, the homeless, also known as street people. When I was a boy, we never heard those words. A dirty, drunk man on the street who wanted money was normally called a bum. Simple word, 3 letters, 1 syllable, bum. And a bum was usually also a wino. You know, a substance abuser. He had a chemical dependency. Little did we know. By the way, it should be pointed out that bum might also have been used to describe the young man your daughter brought home. Many's the bum who didn't pass muster with Dad. I wonder how many of those bums the daughters brought home wound up marrying the tramps the sons brought home. That might explain all those homeless children. But the word homeless is useless. It's messy, it's inaccurate, it's not descriptive. It attempts to cover too many things. Poverty, alcoholism, drug addiction, schizophrenia, no place to live, and begging on the street. Homeless should mean only one thing: no home, no place to live. Many of these people who beg on the street actually have places to live. I had one guy tell me he needed money to buy tires for his van. I gave him $1. I considered him both honest and enterprising. The first word I remember for these people was bag ladies. I don't know why men were left out of this. I never heard anyone say bag men. I guess that's because a bag man is a different thing. A bag man is someone who delivers bribes or illegal gambling money. Probably in today's evasive, dishonest, politically correct language, they'd be called bag persons. In my opinion, the closest we're ever going to get to a good descriptive name for these lovable, grimy folks is street people. And by the way, isn't it ironic that shopping bags and shopping carts, symbols of plenty, should be the objects most preferred by people who have nothing at all? I guess if you have nothing, you need something to carry it around in. Especially if you're crazy. That's what a lot of these street people are, you know. They're crazy. I avoid terms like mentally disturbed and emotionally impaired. You can't let the politically correct language police dictate the way you express yourself. I prefer plain language. Crazy, insane, nuts. The whole world is crazy and many of its inhabitants are insane.
If he were to do this segment today, they might try and cancel George.
Or am I just nuts? And for the most part, we humans do enjoy being colorful and creative when describing the condition of someone who's crazy. Here are a couple of descriptions of craziness that I enjoy. One wheel in the sand. Seat back, not in the full upright position. Not playing with a full bag of jacks. Doesn't have both feet in the end zone. Lives out where the buses don't run. The cheese fell off his cracker a long time ago. His factory's still open, but it's making something else. Here's an odd one. His squeegee doesn't go all the way to the bottom of the pail. I think you have to have some serious time management problems to be sitting around thinking up stuff like that. But there you are. This next one sounds really good, but I confess I don't quite understand it. He belongs in a cotton box. For some reason, it sounds exactly right, though, doesn't it? And if you're going to be irreverent about describing crazy people, you can't get soft when it comes to describing the places we keep them, or used to keep them. In the 1980s, Ronald Reagan decided the best place to keep them was on the streets, which actually makes a lot of sense, because the streets are nothing more than a slightly larger open-air asylum anyway. But around the turn of the 19th century, many states had places called institutions for the feeble-minded. That name seemed too long for some people, so instead they referred to them as madhouses. They took him to the madhouse. Boy, was he mad. Then these places became insane asylums, mental homes, mental institutions, and finally, psychiatric facilities. I have 3 personal favorites. I always liked the Hoo Hoo Hotel. To me, that says it all. Here's another one that's not bad. The Puzzle Factory. It has a certain class to it, doesn't it? But if you prefer a gentler approach, you really can't beat the Enchanted Kingdom. They took him away to the Enchanted Kingdom. And guess how they took him there? The Twinkie Mobile. Now that's descriptive language.
It's a place to stop. Less than an hour left of the audiobook, When Will Jesus Bring the Pork Chops? I have the previous 20 parts in a playlist. Feel free to check those out. Other than that, thanks for watching. Y'all have a nice night. Stay blazing.